Well, hello, hello, and welcome to the Vintage House Show Spotlight. If you're hearing my voice, that means you are in the mix in with Momami, the host of the Vintage House Show Spotlight. We're here every second Wednesday interviewing the best of the best in house music, what's coming up in house music, and we just share our love for all things house. If you are listening on our Twitch, on our YouTube, welcome. If you are tuning into the radio, you are tuned into 89.3 FM, HD1 in Evanston, Chicago for WNUR Street Beat. I am so excited for our guest today. Usually, we do a little interview and then a mix, but today we're going to really get into the meat and the storytelling with our guest. And then we're going to end the segment with a new release from them. So I'm so excited. So let me get into this intro. So today we're sitting down with a Chicago legend. He is noted as being among the second wave of Chicago house producers alongside the names of Derrick Carter, Green Velvet, and Paul Johnson. His influence can be heard on tracks such as Keep On Groovin' and Daft Punk's Digital Love. So Vintage House Show, wherever you are, please give a warm welcome to DJ Sneak. Hello, DJ Sneak.
Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? I hope well. I hope.
Yeah, well, warm wherever you are.
Yeah.
I want to know, where are you calling us from?
I'm currently living in Los Angeles.
Okay, so you definitely, it is actually like 1 degree outside. So you are over there nice and sunny and
Yeah. After so many years of winter, I decided to move down south, and I've always felt like LA has this artist energy here. So every time I used to come here to perform, I would feel a certain way. So I ended up moving down here, and that was after Chicago. I went to Toronto for.
Oh wow. So you went even more north and you said, let's just really
You know
get
what I
into the
mean?
horrible
I
effect.
was like, I'm doing it wrong. I need to go somewhere warm. I'm born and raised in Puerto Rico, so
Right.
I needed to be in the warm weather and palm
Need the
trees and
palm trees, right? The palm trees and the soli playa,
yeah,
you need all of it.
yeah.
I want to get into some of your history and how, what inspired the move to Chicago and eventually led you into house music. So if you don't mind sharing more of your origin story with us, I'd love to hear.
Well, okay. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, in Arecibo. I grew up in Bayamón. Um, Somewhere around middle school, I think I was 13 years old. My parents decided to move to Chicago. Most Puerto Ricans moved to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We had family in Chicago, so we ended up going there. And I landed there in December 26, 1983. And, just like every Latino looking for a good life, we started then. And
Okay.
it was so weird because I landed in the winter and I never seen snow in my life.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a culture shock. And after a week, I begged my mom to send me back. We're
Oh
staying
my gosh.
here. We're gonna keep doing all this stuff, and then I was too young to make decisions at that time. So
Mhm.
I stuck around, and somebody asked me this question the other day: when was the first time I actually heard house music? And it was in December 31st, 1983, WBMX.
Oh wow. Was it like
They
a
had
New
like
Year's
a
Eve
New
thing?
Year's Eve party,
Yeah.
and it was like the whole night, and I'd never heard this music before, and I was sort of drawn to it because they didn't have many lyrics. It was just
Mm.
more musical, you know. And yeah, I was looking for something, and TV wasn't it. So I went to the radio and I found BMX. Um, I kept going. I figured out that it was every Friday and Saturday you would get mix shows, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was back when you had to like learn the schedules of like which DJ was going to be on at which time
yeah,
for the the rush hour mix,
yeah.
the party, totally.
So
And yeah,
I did
do you
about a
remember who
year.
was DJing that? Do you remember what the DJ name
Yeah,
was?
it was a Hot Mix Five. It was
Hot Mix
mostly
Five.
Farley, and then the Hot Mix Five.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
the Hot Mix Five, I really got inspired by Ralphie Rosario.
Oh,
He
okay.
was a Boricua, and I thought, man, if this dude's Boricua, then that's amazing because, I'm from there too, so I
Huh?
felt some sort of pride there. And yeah, those guys, Mario Smoking Diaz, Kenny Jason, Frankie Hollywood, those super old school guys. Mickey Oliver, I'm talking
Mhm.
about, in the early 80s, So that became my connection to this music, because in Puerto Rico, I never heard house music before. It was all salsa merengue and
Yeah. So you heard this house music, you're feeling inspired.
mm.
When did you make your first track or DJ your first like house event?
Okay, so soon after I landed in high school, I went to Roberto Clemente, right down the
Okay.
Fishman Western. And freshman year, first day, they had a school dance, and there was a dude playing house, and I was like leaving the school and not knowing anybody, and then hearing the beat, and I was like, that's that music that I hear on the radio.
Mhm.
So then I followed it to the DJ, and I was in shock because I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then I think that was the first time I saw a guy actually mix and selection and all that stuff. And even though it was a school dance, I was like asking them questions, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
man, I understood how I was listening to music and going 1 hour without a stop, or people talking in between and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So then, yeah, that push. I think it was so that was 85. And 86 is when I first started going to Loop Records in Chicago and buying test press for $2.99, $1.99,
Oh, wow.
and going to my friend's house to actually try to mix because he had turntables.
Ah.
Some little homie in the neighborhood. So then that was in 86. Um, between 86 and 90, when I first started sampling and doing tracks, I was just a DJ. I was a neighborhood DJ. I played
Mhm.
everything there was to play. Homer Park, that was my town right there.
Mhm.
And then around 1990, I had a good friend, Mario Nonstop. I
Mhm.
think he's on the radio somewhere in Chicago. Anyway, he was working with TKA, and he had these two pieces of equipment. That one was a drum machine, a TR-909 by Roland, and the other one was an Akai 900 S900 sampler. And he was more into freestyle and breakbeat.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I saw the way he was working and all that stuff, and I asked him. I said, if I want to make music, like those two things right there will work, to do what I want to do. And the guy was like, yeah. So from that, I saved money. I bought my first drum machine, the TR-909 Roland. Then I waited another 8, 9 months to get money for the sampler, and I bought an S950 Akai. And I would say from 91 is when I first started chopping up samples and
Mm.
ideas happen. Um, Soon after that, I put out my first record.
And which was?
Um, there was actually there was a couple of records that came out on a label that ended up making a sub label called Underground Construction, or UC.
Okay.
I don't think if people go back to the very first release on that was my release.
Oh, wow.
And I had first two there, and then I was working at the Hip House Records too, and I sort of broke apart from the store and just decided to make music, and sort of broke things with them people because they owned the label, right? So then I
Yeah.
kept going. But it was in yeah, it's a label, it's a record called Groove Source. Doesn't even have the name DJ Sneak. It's called Groove Source. And it
Ah.
had a Ricky Garcia remix on it too, which is really dope. And
Yeah.
I just kept going. My story really begins in being a fan like everybody else, buying
Mhm.
mixtapes, buying records. It's essentially finding myself. I'm also a graffiti writer, so I was doing graffiti, and I got into airbrushing and doing the t-shirts and all that stuff. That sort of brought me to the record stores because I would be like, hey, let me just sit up in front of your store and do the shirts for the DJs that come in your store and blah, blah, blah. And I started in different places until I learned the business from buying and selling records in the store at first.
So it sounds like you got to Chicago and kind of quickly immersed yourself into the artistic music kind of culture, that movement that was happening in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, at first as a fan, because like I said, I was an artist first, and I got into graffiti summer 1984.
Mm.
And then after that, that's where the name Sneak comes from, because that was
Ah,
my
you're
street
sneaking
name.
around.
Yeah. And then, when I started, I love DJing. I love DJing. From the moment I saw that dude, I was like, man, I need to try this, and I knew that I had some connection with it. Um,
Mm.
the music part was after years of playing different events and different small parties, block parties and whatever, even school dances and whatever. I was a wedding DJ for a bit. And after you mix so much with your records, you start getting ideas from like, oh, I could take these beats from here and I could take that
Mm.
from here and I could take, and the producer part of me kind of turned on.
Oh.
And I was like, I really want to try it because I really love the music. So I was like, I really want to try it. And plus, I was so inspired by Ralphie's music too, because Ralphie put
Mhm.
out some of his best stuff in the 80s and 90s, and influential to the point where you can still play it today and it sounds like better than it did before. Right.
Yeah.
So that influence sort of kept me driving and sort of learning about the business. Like I
Mhm.
said, I learned to sell music first.
Uh-huh.
So, I sold Bad Boy Bill's first hot mix #1,
Mhm.
and then every other volume after that. And then, you learn the I learned the ins and out of the business of selling records before I actually made my first record,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, where was that from experience working in those place spaces, or how did you get that know-how on how to make money through your art?
Uh, I mean, it was luck. It was
Mm.
luck and taking chances and seeing opportunities and saying, well, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Because I was already poor and shit. I was in the bottom, so I was like, what do I have to lose but try and maybe get somewhere? And that always was my light towards, you know, building a career and production and DJing.
Mm.
When I talk to my kids now and they see my records and everything, and tell them stories about the records and all that stuff, it's like, wow, you really lived the life. But I actually did live the life of what was considered a DJ back in the day,
Mhm.
not not this new school 2020 DJ, but
Mm.
you did the steps. So I did sort of them. I learned a lot, and I was a quick learner. And plus, I just came fresh from Puerto Rico, so I wanted to um, grow into American culture as well. So
Mm.
for me, graffiti was American culture. Uh, House music in Chicago was the other part, and
Mhm.
those were my two foundations.
Yeah.
When I did one or the other, it will complement each other. So I've
Yeah.
always kept that going. And then once I started producing music, it's like, I might take a few months off from touring so then I could focus on music, because that's
Mhm.
really my reset and my reboot is making music again, put it in out, everybody gets excited, then I go and DJ again.
Right. And you spin the
So,
tracks that you
and
worked
now
on.
30 years have gone by and here I am.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear about some of those early, you mentioned some of the block parties, some of those early. I want to hear about, your break into the DJ scene, and what were some of those first venues and first parties you remember, and why were they important to you?
I mean, okay. And the early years um, I was playing. There was a place called Alcatraz.
Okay.
I used to play it. That was like my early days of actually getting some time to play somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Um, I used to play Central Hall like that, a lot with Siggy D. I used to do
Mhm.
parties there. It was like crazy, 20 DJ lineup. Everybody
Oh
gets
my
on
gosh.
there, all ages. So it was like, it was supposed to be 18 and over, but 16 and over.
Right.
kids were hanging out. So it was kind of like yeah. To this day, I haven't found a more amazing and like exciting 16 and over all ages event.
They don't
I've
really
been
have those anymore, you know,
right.
even 18 and up, it's hard to find.
Right. So then, back in the day, we had those in, Logan Square, Centrum Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those are some of the early, and then that's before the 21 and over crowd. Then I remember playing Cairo at the
Mm-hmm.
at the catacombs in the basement with my boy Daryl Woodson, who passed away. Who rest in peace. Daryl
Mm.
Woodson and Hector from Gramophone. And then, honestly, once I started making records, that's when the gigs were coming
Mm.
because everybody was a DJ in Chicago too. And there was a lot of DJs to compete with.
Yeah.
But once you elevated yourself to that next level of actually making a record, then people give
Mm-hmm.
you more respect, right? So then once again, I went to the production part of myself and really focused on putting out music. And I think between 94 to 98, I put out maybe 30 records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You were working.
Yeah. And it was crazy because it was like locally, and then me spending my own money to like print a record and take them
Yeah.
around stores to then um, getting my stuff out to New York. New York gets it out to everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner after that, I started getting calls in my mom's house for bookings. Like,
Landline. It was
can I talk to DJ Sneak? You know what I'm saying? I was like,
And how
my
old were you
mom,
at this point?
um, I was shit. When I got my international break, I was already 22, 23.
Oh, wow. Okay, so still fairly,
Yeah, so like
young.
I got into it in 16. So from 16 to that 22, 23, I was mostly Chicago and then a bit of, Cleveland or close by,
Okay.
Milwaukee, things like that. But it was around 94 when I started putting out music that hit internationally that then I started getting a lot of calls, and some of the first gigs I got opened my eyes up.
Where were some of those international gigs at?
My first one was actually Mexico City.
Oh, that is to this day, I want to play
Yeah,
in Mexico City because their house scene is
it was
awesome.
crazy, and it was like a big rave in the house in the middle of Mexico City, man. Like to this day, I'll never forget that.
Oh,
And
wow.
then my second biggest after that was actually Tokyo.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I
What was
got to
that like?
Japan, I was in Shibuya, standing on the corner, totally tripping out because I was like, "How did I get? Is this a dream, or am I
Yeah.
standing here?" Like I couldn't believe it. And then that was like, if I made it this far, so far, if I made it here,
Mm-hmm.
I can make it anywhere. So then that was like my turning point until like, okay, I'm gonna take DJing as a career,
Yeah.
and learn as much as I could. As much as I had learned already in retail and selling music and the whole process from like making a track to getting it out or whatever, DJing was another level. DJing was like not showing up or just records. I had to learn a lot of different stuff. I had to,
Mm-hmm.
as I was going. And imagine being 22, 23, you just want to be wild and rave and
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like doing it, but at the same time, I was being responsible,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted the ride to last.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
want it to be like a quick, like, oh, hype
Burnout,
moment,
right. Mm-hmm.
and I thought I was on top of the world. No, I was. It's hard to believe these days because I'm very outspoken and I'm controversial in a lot of ways. And
Mm-hmm.
in my early days, I was humble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the business made me into a monster that I'd had to become to survive. And now, after COVID and all this shutdown stuff, I learned to now value myself as a whole. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, yo, I'm already made. I'm already proven. I already did records. I already did
Mm-hmm.
mix CDs. I already did everything that I had to do in a checklist of being a DJ, right? So then I'm just living life now. you know?
Yeah. I really like what you said about kind of like becoming this monster, and
Mm.
when you're early in your career, it's you're so bright-eyed and wide-eyed and everything is so
Yeah.
new to you. And then you have to kind of thicken your skin. I Can you expand a little more on that? Like what were some of the things or events that caused you to say, I need to toughen up here?
Well, at first it was more like I got to uh, one of my early gigs, and I was in Munich, Germany.
Mm.
And I get there and there's no promoter, there's nobody picking me up.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up and I'm just waiting at the airport, like tripping out.
And this was like way before the Uber. Like,
Yeah,
let me just
you know
call.
what I mean? And I'm like, I just got a credit card. You know, I was lucky I just got a credit card and a little bit of something. So I sat there for like 2 hours and I waited. And then
Oh
that
my
time I'm
God.
like, I don't have any information about these people are meeting.
Uh-huh.
And some people were like people from record labels. They were
Mhm.
bringing me to like play their gigs, you know? So right there and then I was like, you know what? There's probably a hotel around here. So I walked to the airport hotel. I checked myself in, and I was awake because I was thinking of all these things, and I was like, I need to know this information. So I wrote down my first itinerary myself,
Oh, wow.
and I gave it to the person who was working at the record label who happened to get that call to book me in Germany. You know what I mean? And I was like, listen, fool, you're not my agent, but I need this information
Yeah.
before I leave. Even if I have to come pick it up at the office, or you can fax it to me, the days of fax, and I'll have something, because I was like, man, that whole experience was a trip, because I sat there and I wrote that thing, and then I wrote a letter to the dude and I faxed it. And I'm like, dude, I got here, nobody picked me up. I checked myself in a hotel. You tell the promoter to pick me up here. I'm going to sleep. And when they pick me up, they better pay for the hotel that I just stayed at. And I was like, and I want dinner and I want to be whatever. I said, I want to be well rested for the
Mhm.
gig. But I was like, tell them I'm here, you know? And of course, they showed up later and it was apologetic. Oh my God, we didn't have information. So I was like, I get it. I didn't have information myself.
Mm.
So that was like step one, right?
Mhm.
Um, After that was like things were going really fast and I handled my own bookings for a bit until I found a person who offered the booking agent, sort of job.
Mhm.
I can do this for you. So, I moved on and this stuff, and every gig and every scenario and every situation was a learning experience. So I
Yeah,
took
it
the
sounds
best
like.
of those things and I put them together for
Mm.
me to be able to do these gigs. If I was gonna go international, I was like, I can't be somewhere and not have one phone number and a contact. Like, what the hell,
Right.
So then, yeah, you get smart as you go. I didn't have to do too many of them because I was smart. I was street smart. So I was like, I got to figure this shit out. 'Cause
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm in the street, right? So then, anyway, that's all good. And when you're growing and everything's going so fast, sometimes it's going too fast, and you don't realize that there are things you need to learn to survive if you're going to be an entertainer. And you have to first, know your own value, and don't ever let anybody tell you you're not what you're saying you are, unless you're bullshitting. But most people back in the day would be like, oh, you're DJ Sneak, you're the one that made this music. Okay, I know who you are, blah blah blah. Years go by, 2 or 3 managers and agents, and then everything was going super organic until the 2000s.
Mm.
After the 2000 and the introduction of the early uh, websites to sell music,
Mm.
and all that stuff started popping up, you saw a shift in the industry, and it became a thing of like, people thought, well, I better jump to the new stuff because I don't want to be left behind. But they didn't realize their own value, and I talk about this too with people. There's a thing that I call vinyl economy. The vinyl economy is basically every single job that every single person had, and there was like maybe 20 or 30 different people, from the person that made the music to the guy who owned the studio
Mm.
to the guy who mastered the stuff, the other guy who cut the plays for your vinyl, the pressing plants who pressed the vinyl or did your CDs or the cassettes, to the delivery guys, to the distribution companies,
Hmm.
the record stores, UPS, everybody else. There was like a long list of people that had jobs. Yeah. And they all got suckered into believing that digital was going to be the way.
Yeah. And then like overnight, we saw that whole process just consolidated.
Yeah. And, you know, somebody played a trick on the industry and everybody believed it. I hated that shit because I came from the truth, you know. All
Mhm.
these things, all these records behind me are my testimony to whatever I'm saying, right? So
Mhm.
um that and social media put a twist on the whole industry.
Mm.
So once again, the digital era really twisted things up, and MySpace, Facebook, and everything after that was just like a disaster. That's when people were able to completely lie to people, fake their way in, pay their way in, play dirty,
Mm.
do each other favors. You book me, I book you. You do
Mhm.
me a favor, I do. It wasn't about like, let's find the best music. Let's keep putting out the best stuff. Let's all grow. Let's all be an industry that we were, happy to be part of.
Mm.
To then sort of fall in a lie that digital was going to be the solution.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And earlier you mentioned how the reason you moved to LA is because you feel like it has more of an artist culture and an artist space. Is kind of this digital era mixed with the way the culture was changing. Is that what prompted your move to Toronto and then LA? I'd like to hear a little bit more about what prompted that transition for you.
Toronto was, I used to have a couple of buddies, early 90s, worked at Casual Records, Green Velvet's label back in the day. And one of the guys that worked at Rob and Spencer Kinsey, aka Gemini, they used to go to Toronto, um, to play gigs. And they would come back and be like, man, Toronto, what's going on? And I was like, really? And then
Yeah.
in one of those transitions, some Canadians came to Chicago. I took care of them. I drove them around. I took them to the clubs. I did this record store, all that stuff. So they invited me to Toronto. And I was like 94. It was sort of winter. I showed
Mhm.
up with my record bag. I lied my way into Canada. I was like, I'm just visiting with some records.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I played that whole week, every single party I could play so I can get heard. And then the Toronto wave really came in, and I gravitated to what I was bringing. Uh, and I really loved the city and Canadians in general. So in '97, I ended up moving there.
Oh wow.
I shipped my records and my studio, and I
What
left.
was the house music scene like out there? Was there like a already big culture?
No, it was they were very influenced by New York house and Jersey house, we used to call it.
Mm, okay.
Right. So there was a lot of vocals and a lot of gospely in a way.
Hmm.
I brought that Chicago ghetto with
Mm,
that shit together.
mhm.
And I changed the way Toronto partied for a long time. Like I not only did I establish myself there as a DJ to see, but I brought other people from Chicago there. Derrick, Mark, Heather,
Mm,
Diz, Gene. I mean, anybody I could to bring to Chicago, I was like, you gotta come see Toronto. Like Toronto's got
yeah.
it going on. So it built. That was from '97 to maybe around, I don't know. I put some time and then I just got so busy that I just became international. So I was involved in the first like 5 years of like the super development of house music in Toronto.
Hmm.
There were all the DJs and there were all the producers there, Nick Holder, Stickman. There were people doing stuff, but uh, what I brought with me, and then my homies that came from Chicago, really, we made a lot of noise. So we changed the way things ended up being there. We made it another small Chicago in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, for us, it was like we were advanced. And then when we went there, they were like maybe 3 years behind. So it was like we were smarter because we were like, we got all the dope records.
Right.
We were doing all the dope stuff, you know what I'm saying? And but yeah, Toronto was definitely a great experience. I needed to jump out of Chicago because the moment I sort of got some spotlight and I got recognized and all that stuff, people just change. Even
Mm,
though you're Carlos from the hood, now it's like DJ Sneak now. And
mm,
I didn't change, but then people changed towards me because I was like, because they wanted what I was like actually getting at the moment. I was like, I
mm.
worked for it, man. I was like,
Yeah.
nobody handed me nothing. So I was like, you're expecting me to just hand it over to you. So I got a lot of that. There was definitely some jealousy in Chicago, you know,
Mm,
as there is. It's a very competitive city overall that goes from graffiti to breakdancing to battle the DJs to all that shit that we all would do, you know what I mean? So it's always been a very competitive city. And at times I would ask myself, why was it that like people like Little Lewis, who was also a legend, a mega teacher to a lot of us, moved to New York?
mm.
Why would you make that move? Why would you leave Chicago if this is the shit right here? Why would you go somewhere
Right.
else?
This is the birthplace. Like, why are we leaving?
But then, yeah, when I caught up with him 1 year down the road, I asked him the question, and he was just like, it was just getting too crowded in Chicago, and everybody wanted to do what you were doing, and everybody was on your back to try to get something, a remix, a disc, or come play this party.
Right.
And the favors kept coming. So after a while, you just like, you know, I need some space. And
Yeah. I
why I left
resonate with
Chicago, you know,
that.
I left Chicago after Puerto Rico. That was like, you know, it was really my school.
Yeah.
I did what I had to do there, you know. I needed space myself, so then I went to Toronto because I
And I,
was playing there all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
even to this day, I always say, you don't want to be a big fish in a small pond. And sometimes as
Mm,
an artist, you do reach that point where, you've done the remixes, you've done the big venues, you've done everything, and you
yeah.
can continue to be that big fish in your home, in your community.
Yeah.
I always tell all artists, challenge yourself to build community somewhere else. Let yourself
That's it.
expand. Mm-hmm.
I actually saw Mark Farina, who's a like a brother to us too, in the underground stuff. He went to San Francisco, but I was like, Mark, why are you leaving Chicago? Like Chicago loves you, man. Like you're in keen here. Like, you know, what are you doing? They're like, dude, San Francisco, I'm on another level with it. And I was like, I get it. When I went down, I understood it. And I was like, damn, dude. So then when I found that same connection in Toronto, and it was a different country. Canada is completely different than the United States. It's like black and white.
Mm.
We're
Yeah.
like, you know, they got their own ways of doing things, and Americans do as well, right? So then when I went there, I really loved the way life was there, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna try it here. And at first, I wasn't illegal. I was like an illegal alien up there until I got my papers. But then I made a life out of there, and I really enjoyed my years there. But
Yeah.
you know, Chicago was always with me. You know, and wherever I went, I was always repping Chicago. You know, and still to this day, I'm still Chicago. You know.
Yeah. And so we've been talking a lot about kind of like your history and your origins and the journey
Mm,
it took to get to where you are now. I want to hear about this mix you just dropped to a part of the Dirtybird Scrambled. I want
yeah.
to hear about how did that connection come to be, for anyone in your position that's looking to maybe be featured, their mix featured on an album. How did someone reach out to you? Do you have a connection with that label? How did that all come to be?
Okay. When first Dirty Bird popped in the scene as a
Uh-huh.
label, and Claude Stroke, the director and owner of the label, right? When he put out his first single,
Hmm.
if you go look it up, you'll see that there was a DJ Sneak remix on that first single.
Oh, wow. So you've had that connection for a
Right.
while.
And that track's actually in the mix. It's called Deep Throat. So I
Yes.
remixed his first single coming out on a new label from San Francisco. It was like unheard of too. I mean, I was already built as DJ Sneak, the remixer at this point.
Yeah.
The dude was just starting, right? So that was our first connection. That was years ago.
Oh.
And he was just a person that was partying in the same places in San Francisco when we used to whatever. He built up Dirtybird. It's definitely, he catered to a specific demographic that fit what he was going for. That's what I really respect about Dirtybird and the whole movement of Dirtybird.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit in the younger, like I'm considered the OG compared to the DJs that are usually playing their kind of events. But anyway, through friends and people that I know, just recently played the camp out in October with Derrick Carter and Mark Farina.
Oh, wow.
And it was super cool. Everybody loved it. Then I get a call a few weeks later and they're like, we're doing this project. We want you to be involved. They know I'm a DJ, whatever, that I can just jump on things. And honestly, if I tell you the truth, you're not even gonna believe it. But besides my track on that track listing,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know any other tracks in that mix.
Uh-huh.
So they send me 16 songs and be like, make a mix out of this. And that's what I did. And I sent it back to them.
Wow. And what was some of the inspiration, behind the style you went with versus kind of when you first started out?
Yeah. Honestly, like I had to go in with a blank canvas because
Mm,
honestly, I wasn't so connected to some of the music they put in this folder, and I couldn't choose. It was like you got to make it from this folder,
yeah.
and that's what you got to work with. So I'm Puerto Rican, so I chopped it all up, and I made a nice meal for them, and I served it right back. As as a person that understands music, while it wasn't my style in some of those tracks,
Hmm.
I picked the best parts of those tracks, and I knew when to mix in and out to make it sound a DJ sneak
Cohesive.
mix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
with a catalog, a folder of catalog music that they own already. So
Hmm.
it wasn't like a brainstorm. It was like a really quick turnaround, but it was like, hey, listen to the music. I listened to it. I was like, I don't know, but I'll try. And then my guy was like, okay, give it a try. And a few days later, I went to the playlist. I made my cue points and whatever. And just in 1 hour, I just turned everything on and mixed it live. So
And
that's
now,
what it is.
that's what we got. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear, how do you feel like your sound and your style has evolved? Because house music has very much evolved since day one. How do you feel like your sound has evolved since day one for you?
I mean, the evolutionary DJ Sneak, you have to like go back to my first records and listen to my first tracks, and then follow me to what's happening now.
Hmm.
Uh, I've always, it was so weird to say this, right? But I molded a style within the house music genre. I there is this such thing as they call a DJ Sneak type of track, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you say that, people be like, okay, it's gonna have hard drums, crazy bass line. It's gonna be choppy and like because the way I produce music is the same way I DJ. So I'm a very aggressive multi on it, right? Whether it be the records or digital. Um, uh, I feel like I've written a chapter in a house music book, right? So then the style has remained the same, which is I make music for DJs, I make music for clubs, I make music for bumping cars with sound systems. I make that type of music. I don't make music for radio. I don't make music for pop. I
Mm-hmm.
can and I have, as you mentioned, the Daft Punk. track
Mm-hmm.
People Love. I actually co-wrote that track and I wrote the lyrics to that track.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm capable of doing, but it's the raw Chicago style that I bring to the club or to whatever it is that I'm putting myself into. When people know when I walk in and I take over a sound system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I'm making it loud and obnoxious and playing the hits.
Right.
It's because I'm bringing a sound that is my sound that I
Your signature.
could have, yeah, the signature sound of DJ Sync, yeah. So while the sound has evolved, the flavor and the soul and everything that I put together has always maintained. I've never compromised to fit a certain style or be cool with a certain group of DJs or
Mm.
want to be considered techno or want to be considered that. No, I'm doing mine. You
Yeah.
like mine? It's cool. You don't like mine? There's other stuff. That's
Yeah.
always been my way, you know? There's, you know, I don't know. It's hard to talk about myself in that way because I'm still trying to keep it humble. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still making music every day. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
producing. I'm still trying to make things to maybe even change the way things are right now.
Mm. Do you feel like there are any producers or house DJs who you're keeping your eye on that you feel like are really moving and progressing the sound forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of um, next generation, or you know, this new generation. I could say, I mean, there's a handful of people that I keep my eyes on, and
Mm-hmm.
people that we share music with. And I have a brand called I'm a House Gangster, and under this brand, I created a label.
Mm.
A lot of those artists on that label, Jesse Perez from Miami, he's
Mm.
amazing. He's like what I consider House Gangster to be in terms of a sound. Ramon Tapia from Europe, Trip Masters from Russia. So like
Mm.
I opened up my label as not only a house label from America, but a house label that was including all these next generations of kids that I might have gone through the town or somebody else, some other house DJ from Chicago might have gone and turned them on. And then
Mm.
they started making that sound in their own cities and in their own countries, you know what I mean? So I became a collector of different people from around the world, actually. And you know, house is all about being inclusive, and as I was inspired, I think I've inspired other people around the world as well. So then these kids that I consider kids, sometimes at 20 to 40 years old,
Uh-huh.
uh, they come forward and be like, "Look, man, I made my first track, or I made making music. You want to listen to it?" And of course, I give it a go. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. For me, my dopest guy that I work with and I respect a lot is Trip Masters, which is a dude from Russia.
Okay.
When I found him in MySpace, out of the blue.
And you were
And
like, I need to sign this guy.
yeah, like I was, there was a connection there, and then when I met him, I was like, seriously, like he looked like Lurch from Adam's Family. I was like, are you kidding me, dude? And the looks were, you know, whatever. He was straight. Uh, he has that Chicago seed in him. He
Mm.
has the Detroit seed in him. He has that New York seed in him. He has hip hop in him, even though he's from a little ass place in Russia. You know what I
Right.
mean? So to find that, I really worked with him for years, and I mean, we've done a lot of things the past 10 years together.
Mm-hmm.
He's been my number one, and then from this side, I've always loved Jesse Perez. He's like
Mm-hmm.
my favorite. You know, these are
Yeah.
my top two guys that I really that I love and respect, and I'm always excited to hear new music from them.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, that makes me really happy to hear that you are embracing kind of this like younger, newer generation and kind of trying to pass the baton and teach
Yeah.
some things that you didn't know starting out. And here on the Vintage House Show, you know, it exists because my role is to kind of bridge the generational gap between my kind of era of my generation of DJs with people
Yeah.
from your generation, because I just turned 27. I've been DJing
Oh my God.
4 years now. So, I have people on the show who are about my age who grew up on like house music in like the 90s that their mom or dad was playing. And so, it's a space for the new heads to kind of
Yeah.
spit their stuff, but also, talk about what they're doing, talk about their legacies. And so I want to hear from you, as someone who's been in this game for many years now. What's some advice or guidance that you would give people my age who are in this industry, love house music? What's some advice you want to give?
Oh man, that's hard to say. I'm going to try to put it all in a nutshell. First of all, acknowledge that this generation has a lot of ways of researching authenticity. Years back, I was playing a game with my brother, and we were going on YouTube and type in the name of a track, and then boom, a record. It would be like the label copy, and the whole track would play. You know what I mean? And we were like, wow, how can YouTube have all these records? Like, people actually recorded those records and posted that.
Yeah.
So then, there's a lot of ways of being authentic and original, and sounds cliche, but you got to be yourself. You got to put yourself into what you're doing. I had a crazy 15 years when social media kicked in. And I had a lot, I was so anti, because I was like, man, like, where are these people coming from? And who are these whatevers? And then once I started finding out that you can buy and you can cheat and you could do it, I was like, where is this heading to? So it's not about, I don't want to hear, if the first thing a dude tells me, oh man, I'm so inspired by music, man, and then they tell me I just want to be famous, I just be like, hit the door, because you're going where everybody else is going, which is a lie. You know what I mean? And if somebody comes more humble and be like, man, inspired, blah blah blah, I really want to learn more. What can you share? Or who should I listen to? Or what record label should I go after? Or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's like, those are the people I give my time to. Sometimes I'll try to tell I want to be famous type people, you're going down the wrong road, because it's not about be famous. This is where DJing became a thing. And I say between 2000 and 2018, it was about how popular can you be. It wasn't about how talented.
Right.
It wasn't about how success was based on a lie and an illusion, an avatar that you created of yourself to the world. You know what I mean? And if you painted the right picture, everybody believed that you were the top of the game. You know what I'm saying? So then you're like, what the hell is this? So it became a popularity contest. It's not about a popularity contest. It's about finding your connection to this music. And really, even right now, I'm telling you, it's so easy with your phones and whatever. Just do your research. You don't have to do what the old school people did 20 years ago, but at least hear it, hear the connection, see the connection between the dots that were put together. Because I'm not house music by myself. I'm one of the sons of Chicago. And Chicago is a mother. And we have many brothers and sisters in the same, right? So it's about making that connection with what it is that connected you to house music, not using house music or DJing as a stepping stone to being famous. And that's where things went, So it's not, my thing is like, keep it true, keep it real, believe in yourself, create your own painting, go on your own journey. Who cares what everybody else is saying? Who cares what's popular? No, dude, if you have something you feel like, I believe in this and I want to keep going, that's the way I sort of did it. Because when I was coming up, everyone was like, you ain't going to be nothing. Oh, you're going to whatever with you. Like, I got every single bad comment. And I was like, I thought you were all rooting for me, and now that I made it, you just want to shoot it down? Like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? So, but if I would have listened, I would have been stuck somewhere in Chicago, probably pushing a broom somewhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I listened to myself. I followed my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I found that passion, which is the shit that I still have today in me, in my heart, for house music. I My connection is passion to this music. From
Mm-hmm.
the early records I heard, from the Frankie Knuckles to the Steve Hurleys and everything else, that was like my school. That's like, I hear it today, I'm like, oh my God, it's like hearing an old salsa song that your mom used to listen to,
Right.
right? But I'm talking about just 80s, not really, just 80s and 90s. That was the most influential house music everywhere. Most influential time in house music that like molded the rest of the industry,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Advice is like, do research and find authenticity, and
Mm-hmm. And
follow
stay
people
authentic.
that's it. That's it. When you don't have nothing, it's like you don't have to create a persona to make people like you and believe in you. Oh, shit, just do what you do best. And
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna show the world, okay, this kid's good at this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't good at everything. I had to try. I failed. I tried. I failed. I tried. I didn't give up. I learned. I didn't give up. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
Uh-huh.
if this is not this way, there's gonna be another way.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that was always my attitude. I never took no for an answer. I never took like, your shit's not good. You're not gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, buddy, see you later.
Right.
Out the door. Um, you
Thank you.
know, I think that's really the most important part is to stay true to what you believe that but mostly make that connection and stay true to that connection.
Stay true. Thank you for dropping those words of wisdom. That
Yeah,
very valuable knowledge, DJ Snake. I really appreciate you spending the last, feels like this last 50 minutes like flew by. We just
I know.
have been
I know I
chopping
talk a
it
lot.
up.
I'm trying to like get it all in. It's just a lot of information.
No, I appreciate your transparency, your openness. Where can we follow you? Do you have any residencies we can support you at, or any social media
Um,
website? How can we support?
well, I mean, I'm on Instagram. I have my own djsync.com. I stream every Friday.
On Twitch?
No, I was doing Twitch for a while, but now I went somewhere private. Uh,
Okay.
it's a weird name, but I'm gonna try to tell you. It's Mona.social is the name of the server and the
That's
platform.
social. Okay.
Mona.social, and then you look for DJ Sneak, and then you'll see where I have. I stream every Friday live, vinyl only, and then I've already collected almost 400 videos in the last 3 years of me streaming. You know,
Okay.
so it's kind of DJ Sync on demand. So if I'm not live, you're always gonna get some sort of recording of me DJing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still on the road. I was in Chicago last year, played my house festival. It was really, really amazing. I really loved
Yeah,
it.
I love that fest.
Yeah.
DJ there, I think the first or second year it
Yeah.
was out. Paul Johnson was the headliner that year
Yeah.
that I DJ'd, and it was so much. It was such a good time. So
Yeah.
great to see these
That
new,
festival really showed me that the youth are actually paying attention. And
yep.
just
And
know
we're
this,
trying to keep it going. We're
yeah,
trying to
if
keep
you're
the
from
circle
Chicago, house music is in your blood.
turning. It is.
It's in your water. It's in that shitty Lake Michigan water. It's like
It's in the air we
house
breathe.
music is part of that. And I was like, you don't have
Mhm.
to look too far to know somebody who was a DJ or some, cousin or uncle, whatever, that used to know about. This is like, it's so weird. It's so weird because I'm only 52, right? But it's like talking to the old guy. Talk to the old guy and be like, how was it 20 years ago when
Mm,
you were doing this? And they'll tell you. And not only tell you, they'll show you the emotional part of why they were connected to that. And
mhm.
that's a beautiful thing like that, because that really inspires people. You
Yep.
know, when somebody tells me, hey, this year, this party, what, dude, and I go open up on it, it's like they're reliving it through me. I'm
Mhm.
telling that story. If I can show them a movie, it'd probably be better, but I don't have a movie. So I'll be like, this happened, that happened, this record, that DJ, boo, 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 it was amazing. And then people were like, oh my God, I wish I could have been there. I wish I can find something like that. And that really drives people to connect with other people who are in the scene, you know?
Mhm.
So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really do
thank
appreciate your
you.
time. If you're listening, don't go anywhere because we are about to hear the DJ Sneak remix to Deep Throat by Claude Von Stroke from the Dirtybird Scrambled.
Yes.
So we're going to play that now, but thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thank
seriously
you,
for,
Chicago. Thank you, the world. And keep it positive. We're still here. Chicago still
yeah.
lives. House music forever.